stupid.
All right, folks, I think we're live. So welcome everybody to today's episode of Quarantide. We're going to be talking about some production tips, techniques, producing rationale about surrounding the crystals effect we released on Tuesday. Thanks to everybody who tuned in for the launch day demo. And we're still running intro pricing on that on both platforms. That's iOS as well as desktop. So you can check it out also with a free 30-day trial at eventideaudio.com. Our guests today, we're talking with Matt Lang, Nutrix, the synth guy, Sebastian and Rocha Morton from Roca Sound, Robert Dutzig, and Paul Willie Green Womack. Thank you guys for joining today. Talk about this. This is a dope lineup. I'm super excited to be talking with you guys about film scoring, production, and beat making, that sort of thing, sound design, sample manipulation, and so let's get into it with some intros, and then we'll open it up and we'll get the Eventide folks out of the way first. So my name is Colin. I'm the product manager for plugins. And so I work with our content creators to make sure that we've got sound examples, presets, all that stuff ready to go for these plugin launches, as well as supporting our artists that use them. Let's go to Russ.
I am Russ, do signal processing at Eventide. Been there for a while, so I'm here to as tech support.
Right on, yeah, so any technical questions, Russ will be able to help us out. Let's go to Matt.
I'm Matt Lang. I am a composer, producer, and artist. I use a lot of Eventide stuff. I like it.
Right on. Let's go to Nutrix.
Hi, well, I'm based in Montreal. I mostly do online
tutorials because my background is in school. I mean, I've been teaching in a school for sound recording and music creation for probably 25 years now in music technique in Montreal. So I mostly teach, show how it does, how to do it, and right now I'm known because I'm using a lot of the iPad mostly to do my production. So, and I love all the stuff that was released for the H series on the iPad. So that's why I'm there. I'm here, I think.
Awesome. Sebastian?
Hi, my name is Sebastian Orocha Morton. I go under the name Roca Sound for electronic production. I'm a producer, remixer, composer. I've been doing a lot of film things lately, a lot of sound design, a lot of composing, scoring, a lot of the synths on some major movies, using a lot of Eventide to like kind of create really cool ambiances with orchestral sounds from sessions done at Abbey Road, things like that. And so I've been using the H9 and the hardware before that. So it was always really interesting to kind of see all these plugins come out, like kind of the, you know, the brain of the H9 kind of be able to be used on my laptop and iPad and stuff. I think it's fantastic. So really happy to be here.
Perfect. Robert?
Hi, I'm Robert Dudzik. I'm the producer, composer, and sound designer. I specialize in doing sound designs for movie trailers, TV shows, and I also work on a lot of instruments, contact instruments library. One of them was the heavy acid native instruments Damage, the whole series of the Project Sam Symphobia Orchestra, and latest thing I did was with Steinberg, Backbone, when I did all sounds for, not all, but a lot sounds for the Backbone. And yeah, and I'm doing a lot of videos online, basically designed to showing people how I do what I do serious, but basically I just showing them the tricks how I'm using stuff, and a lot of them, it's based on the Eventide, especially the black hole reverb. Yeah, pretty much that's it for now.
And Paul?
Yeah, I'm Willie Green. I'm here in Brooklyn. I'm a producer, an engineer, do a little songwriting, kind of do a little bit of everything. And yeah, I've been, I don't know, I work in a lot of kind of avant-garde type stuff. I work in, we call it art rap. I do kind of weird R&B, where I need, you know, effects like crystals. Crystals is dope because it kind of brings a lot of things together for me in one package. You know, I kind of like pretty out there effects. I got to put the sauce on things, you know. So excited to talk about this. And yeah, the whole bundle, all the H9 line, the new stuff is really nice because it takes that and puts it conveniently right at my fingertips. So excited to talk about it.
Right on. Thanks everybody again for joining us. So you guys kind of touched on something already there, which Paul, you were saying, you know, it brings a lot of things together for you. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to open it up by asking everybody, like, how does an effect like this speak to you as a producer or a sound designer, right? Because it's not a reverb or a delay that you're expecting, you know, a specific set of parameters to be available to you. When you're trying to get that thing, it's, you know, sort of like built on the architecture from earlier hardware like H3000, where you have this massive toolkit of delays and filtering and reverbs and pitch shifting and all that stuff that you can combine to get, you know, thousands of different sounds. And then reducing that to, okay, it's almost like the suggestion of, you know, you've got this reverse delay, pitch shifting, and a reverb aspect to it. How does that come together for you guys? And what do you find that you're looking to get out of it when you pull that effect up?
I find it to kind of be like an ethereal world generator. And the first thing I did is I have a DSP 4000 here from, you know, 1995 or whatever. And there was an algorithm in it called Genesis Worlds, which essentially was two delay lines that one went up 700 cents, the other went down 500, and then it went into a big modulated reverb. And so having crystals, the first thing I wanted to do was just recreate it, so I didn't have to, you know, pipe things out of the box. And, you know, pretty quickly I could do it. I mean, instead of using the reverb actually on crystals, I ended up just throwing a black hole after it just to really blow it out. But the other trick I found too, because with the dual pitch shifters, automatically it goes left to right. So in Pro Tools, I just set it to be a dual mono, and then I just spread it out. I actually used the micro shift beforehand just to make it really stereo, then crystals, and then finally then the black hole after. But within a few minutes, I had basically the sound of that old DSP 4000 algorithm, which I've used. I mean, that's been the basis of songs before.
So you're saying we undersold ourselves?
Perpetually, just make worse products.
That's interesting. So you actually reduce that per channel to have both of those pitch shifters to create that even further
because I didn't
sound on both sides.
Well, I didn't want the left side to be going up while the right side was going down.
Okay.
I wanted them both to be going up and down, so that's why I used the micro shift beforehand, just to spread everything out really wide. And then it's like it sounds like an orchestra basically. I put the Rhodes through it. There's a Rhodes behind me, and I just put a volume pedal in front of the Rhodes, played a C, like C4 or something, and just did a swell, and it was just like a big orchestral swell. I mean, it was gorgeous.
So has anybody else used the hardware for similar effects?
Hardware as in the old stuff, or like the H9?
Either or, yeah.
I mean, some of my heroes early on were like Daniel Lanois and Brian Eno, Mark Howard, all these guys. And when I first started interning in studios and stuff, we used to do a lot of rides of the H3000 and the 4000 and things like we used to perform automations because you weren't able to do it back then. So we would make these crazy modulations in real time as certain pads went through the songs or whatever. So it's kind of amazing now, especially with the ribbon. I think the ribbon's like absolute game changer because it's kind of exactly what we always wanted when we were manually.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we did it. And when you guys came out with your pedals, with your individual, the pitch factor, mod factor, all those, we did it with that. And then when the H9 came out, then you had the iPad. But now I feel like because you can actually save the automation, it's pretty incredible. I mean, that's really been a game changer in terms of really creating weird modulations, like, complex stuff for certain sections.
And so how does that fit into the context of your composition or remix or whatever you're working on?
Yeah, for example, like maybe 5-6 years ago, what we would do is we would do some crazy passes by chaining up all the pedals, right? So like we'd just do performances for like 10 minutes. Like say you want to do some out there sound design with some orchestral patches that you recorded, but you want to create a sort of ethereal pad out of it or something. We used to just do kind of like you would with modular gear right now. Like we would do performances with the whole patch of all the pedals. And then we would kind of listen to 20, 30, 40 minutes of all the crazy stuff we did. And then we would patch one performance that actually fit the song the way we wanted it. Like, oh, okay, cool. Here comes the bridge. Bring in that super dark filtered weird part that just became this crickets thing with, by putting the reverb, the space at the end, things like that. So what I feel now is that what I really like is, as much as we liked having that modular accident thing, which is always fun, I do kind of love being able to recall certain sections, like be like, okay, the pitch is going to go, everything. Or if we add the black hole reverb or something, it's like, I want it to go into full mix precisely at this section, and another thing that we love with Eventide stuff is messing with like the size and gravity, because it creates this kind of tape echo rewind kind of weird thing, which I always loved from Space Echoes and Echoplexus. And those are very hard to get precise because, anyone that loves modular stuff knows, I mean, you move one knob and like 10 things happen and it's just nuts. And so I kind of always felt like the pedal had that factor of like, okay, here it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And you never knew exactly what would happen. And I do, as much as I like that, I really like being able to like precisely dial in both crystals, black hole, crush station, also a very fun one. Having all those chained and actually being able to automate is just awesome.
So you're not recording those things down then?
No.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will if I patch him out to something. Like maybe I'll patch him out to like my overstayer saturator or like a culture vulture or something fun. If I'm going to do that, then I'll play with it, I'll kind of do it old school. But just having like, for example, especially like black hole going into crystals or crystals going into black hole, like being able to have those tape rewind things and also be able to kind of have the pitch, the pitch shift be a little more precise has been a game changer. Especially like pads, and I feel like a lot of the music, the modern music, I don't know if you would call it lo-fi hip hop, lo-fi soul, like guys like FKJ and Tom Misch and those guys. It's like they always have this kind of almost like a sine wave piano kind of thing. There's certain sounds that are built on the detuning of, like, the coolest part of some of these sounds that are coming out in those genres is this weird kind of widening detuning of toy electric pianos, Juno kind of, simple sounds, but weird detuning. I find crystals, I've been experimenting with those kinds of sounds lately. And I love messing with the pitch in crystals for that kind of stuff.
So Paul or Robert, how about you guys for like, recording samples or, creative sound design? Are you using that for, like Sebastian was saying, in an automation sense, or are you trying to record those things down to create a separate element that you then pull into your tracks? Or
for me, it's like, well, a lot of times when I go recording sounds, sometimes just have like a shotgun microphone with me, and the sounds just become like it's just a mono sound, and I'm focused, okay, like a low bass, so bass supposed to be in mono, so it's okay with that. But with the sounds, coming like a lot of cool details of the sounds too, and I want them to sound bigger. So this is like the micro shift just become like a life changer to me completely. Because basically I'm adding this thing and I stage just open about maybe like 20% of the full mix. I can go even higher, because then there will be it's just wild stuff what you can do. And sometimes, when I just leave the track, the original file and the one track, and I double the track when I just gonna open the micro shift, then I have the full control going wild. So this is how I do. So it's a great thing right now, changing the pitchings and going over and moving, and sometimes even add like rotary. So the sounds just become crazy for me. It's very inspired, like sometimes when I'm working on some stuff and it's just like a simple stuff, and you just have like some scraping some metals when I'm in the junkyard or something, and it's just a scrape metal. But the moment when I open and program the envelope, how it's open, and even like adding even to like crystal, or when I open and the end and just envelope is open, and it's going to the black hole, and the end, this little scratch is convert and the end to completely new, different sounds, was creating like an amazing soundscape with something very eerie was in the beginning. And I find this thing really cool. And, this is why I love them, because I'm able to program the animations and open the Cubase, and just go draw my envelope exactly with the sounds when I'm doing soundscape or any trailer part, and it just worked perfect, I find this thing very, very useful.
Yeah, I've been loving it. I love the amount of control that you can have over the pitch. I know it's not only with this one, but like you can do like your micro tuning, or you can do drastic pitch changes.
Yeah.
Because I work with a lot of dissonance. A lot of artists I work with, they're into that.
Don't you feel when you go like 100%, you're taking away completely from the sound, the sound
Right.
becomes completely something different.
Right. You know, because the thing with dissonance is it's not just some random other note to make it sound weird. Like you're choosing these differences in pitch
Yeah.
to a certain effect. It's not just turn a knob and I mean, in some ways it's turn a knob to see what happens.
You got to find the balance, you know, and to keep
Right.
the original, but add the something similar. People are going to like, wow, that's cool.
Right. You know, I mean, a lot of like, I want to play something and have them be like, Green, what was that? What did you do to my voice? Or what did you do to like, that's when I know, okay, like we're pushing things in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I might need to tone it back a little bit, but at least, you know, with this, I have that control. Like we said before, like we have the instant recall, the accuracy of being able to come right back to it. Because the thing is, I like to experiment to a point. It's like, okay, this is crazy. I don't know how I got here, but I need to stay here and be able to come back here if I have to do a recall or something like that. I can't just get so loose that I can't recreate it for my clients if they like that and want to hear it again.
So that's an important workflow decision for you to say, yes, I'm not going to record it down. I need to have that available to me at all times.
Right. If it's something that's, you know, if I'm using some hardware in conjunction, I've got a hybrid setup. So if I'm using something outside of the box, then yeah, I'm going to print that to make sure I can get it back. But that's the nice part about plugins is that you can go right back there and then tweak it further if necessary.
Save your own preset of whatever you want to do with this.
True. True.
Another cool thing is, you know, like I've been loving Electron gear lately. Because in a way, because I feel like one of the greatest things that Electron has been implementing is the use of LFOs. I know they're in everything, but the way that they, like, for example, when I first got the mono machine and you could just have an LFO switching a little bit of the detuning part of the pitch, like little things like that, you know, makes such a huge difference. And I always was like, oh man, I wish I could trigger an H3000 with an LFO.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be incredible. And I kind of feel like with crystals, I've been doing that a lot. Like I have certain LFO, I spent some time making some cool kind of LFO-ish motion automation. You know,
Right.
Something random, sometimes signed, sometimes triangled in certain sections. And it can be super subtle, like just taking both pitches independently moving, you know, like again, like something you would do with modular. And I find crystals to be amazing when it comes to inputting some randomization into the automation of each and each delay. That's when I start getting some of that weird space echo kind of, you know, wobble thing, which I think is killer. Yeah,
And
so
you're right. And the fact, I mean, everything that you released as the H9 series screams for LFO type of approach. You just want to have something that goes with a shape, and then okay, let that play, and then play something else. It just screams for that, you know. It just and the fact that now with on the iPad it was not possible before, but now with the audio unit format, you can now send these controllers to the plugin, and it makes a whole, you know, world of difference. You know, I personally love the last one you released, the crystals on drums, but just on parts of it. You know, so I would put it on the hi-hats but then there's a randomization. It's not exactly where you expect it should be. So that's kind of part of the experiment. You know, I find that it's not always where I want it to be, but in a way, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I wanted something that's going to be in the background, just bringing up some of the depth of your mix. You know, there's something else at a different pitch, moving around your straight, clean drum playing in the front. So that's how I right now I'm using it for it.
I think the randomization, that's a great thing because it gives us all the elements of the surprise. Otherwise, we'll be predict everything and you know your tools, you know how to get, and there will be no inspiration. But the random stuff is just surprise you and just give you inspiration. And sometimes you're starting with the point A and you ending with completely something different because it's just triggered completely different. I find out this lately. I was working on some like spooky sounds for the new trailer, and when I use like a kind of tiny pizzicato strings playing on the violins and the little plucking of the strings, and when I ran this to the crystallizer and just let this just thing go, those doesn't sound anymore like a violin. So I have to bring back a little bit of the mix. But when I left this thing and when I play this thing back, the little details were starting going after. There was phenomenal, crazy, like so organic, natural sounds. So what I did this thing, I record this thing and I play all the fire and the reverse, and I play after through the black hole a little bit when the black hole was opening, and that just become like so tonal drones like going under, not even loud and low. It's just a weird, cool sounds, organic sounds when you hear all these tiny details. And I love this element of surprise, you know. And the other thing what I want to say, the whole H9 series, I like they all look the same, almost different colors. So you don't have to spend time on learning, okay, another new plugin, you have to learn where is everything. You all know where is everything. And if you know black hole, you know anything else because you know what to expect and where to go to do everything. So that's what I love this thing, the simplicity of this thing, because, you know, every company is kind of like with a lot of different new plugins and new designs. And each time you have to learn these things. Where is this thing, this function doing this doing this. And the H9 series is pretty much the ribbon is in the same place. Freeze button is here, you know, and it's like black and white. You can read everything and it's very easy to operate. And even when I go to program animation, I know exactly where to go and I know which thing is gonna doing something for me. So
that randomization, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
That randomization thing is often, sometimes it's intentional. Sometimes we just leave holes for it because I think music creation is this sort of beautiful balancing act between novelty and familiarity. And if you can kind of get that, if you can balance those things correctly, you get like maximum dopamine hit, right? Like,
yeah,
that's really kind of like what it's all about. And when you make these effects, as long as you are open to having a life of their own, and I feel like that's kind of this secret place to be. But as soon as you start trying to tame them too much, you're done.
No, this is what I mean. Like this is where the mix tools coming.
Yeah.
And when you just not open the 100%, you just go maybe like 25. Sometimes they're so strong, I just go like 5 or 6% because it's plenty enough.
Yeah.
To
so
add
we figured
this nice tone, you know. It's just like salt and pepper. That the more you do,
yeah,
you're getting the right balance. You know, you don't want to just overproduce this stuff. So it's just a little bit, just enough to give the element surprise. It's like, wow, simple sound, but it's cool. Something inside.
Yeah. So we give you guys the giant Morton salt, the Costco size one, and it's your job to figure out how to like.
Yeah.
that's sort of the Eventide way, isn't it?
I like mine salty. I'm putting all the stuff on.
This is what I always say. Like what I do sound design is like a cooking. You know what I mean? It's like the more you cook, no matter what you're gonna do, it's gonna taste good because you know the portions of the levels of how I call like my plugins, I call them the spices, which how much you have to add them to make the right meal. And the more you do, if you're good cook, no matter what you're gonna do, you just know the proportions, and it's gonna be sounds good at the end, so you don't have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. It's like adding the flavors, so it's then you have your own taste, and people are gonna recognize you flavor because then you know how much they're adding everything.
Do you guys think that there's ever a time to take an effects forward approach where that's going to be the focus of something that you're either creating from scratch or pre-recorded material? And when do you do that?
I've been finding myself leaning more and more on effects in my production. Maybe I'm bored with my drum sounds and synth sounds, or I don't know, but I find, you know, with stuff like this, they're musical effects. It's not just, okay, this is something pretty to put on. Like, it's going to interact with what I'm doing. You know, there's time-based things. It's going to push and pull with my music. So I'm just going to send something to it and just kind of see what happens, you know, and maybe that's going to take me in a different direction. Like, I'm not a keyboardist in that way. Like, I'm going to sit down and play you a tune, but I can take some sounds and put them through some stuff and then through some other stuff and make something that sounds cool. To me, that's the more exciting way to do it for my style.
And you're into that whole art rap genre, like you were talking about, and especially with like the press play project and working with producers like Elucid, right? There's some pretty out there stuff. Is that kind of like what you're talking about, like where you would take that approach?
Yeah, because a lot of people I work with, like, they don't want it to sound like everybody else. If it's like, okay, like this is a nice sound, but somebody else did that, Green, we got to do something else. It's about that individuality of it, and it might be a great organ part. It might sit in there just right, but that just right might not be what the artist is looking for. So I got to have something to take it out of there and tweak people a little bit with it. When appropriate. You can only tweak when the tweaking is right, but that's what gives you that push and pull, that contrast of, okay, here's something regular, and now here's the crystals, and this is putting the spice on, and so now that's accenting that, but also the beauty of whatever is straightforward.
That's actually that's a really good way of seeing it, because I think that's how we've always used Eventide. It's kind of like the thinking out of the box piece of equipment. Like, I feel like even when we used to go into the huge studios, back in end of the 90s, 2000s, where, you saw all the typical, you saw the lexicons and you saw all these things, but it's like whenever you had a sound that was just too traditional, like a pad or even a background vocal, and it was just sounding like, okay, here's one more synth pad or something. It's like, it was always like patching the Eventide, whatever was there.
Yep.
Because in a way, you just knew that even just scrolling through the presets, something was going to happen that suddenly made that a little more new for the artist, and not like, oh, that's a Juno, oh, that's a Triton, oh, that's, an Arturius pad or whatever. It's kind of, and I feel like this is just an evolution of it, in terms of whenever I feel like I'm a little bit stuck using, choruses and phasers and reverbs, whatever I feel is needed, I always bring up your stuff, especially now with crystals, because you kind of get that granular phasey thing that's very Eventide. I mean, I guess you guys really have your own sound when it comes to that kind of a thing. It's hard to describe. It's kind of, I see it almost like an automatic double tracking meets some type of ambiance delay.
Like you're just laying on that production, creating that production layer.
Yeah, like I feel like
almost instantly.
The H949 and your harmonizers of that sort, to me, were always kind of the pinnacle of like, this is just the coolest, most natural way to open up the stereo with, add a little flange vibe. It always kind of was this amazing effect at opening up sounds. And I feel like now all your whole series is kind of that. You're just breaking up those boxes into the evolution of, and I love it, because I feel like now I can put your effects in a different order in my chain. That was always difficult with hardware, even when we had the pitch factor pedals and all that, it was like, okay, I'm gonna put a Sans amp, and then I'm gonna drive that Sans amp through the space pedal. And then you kind of start, it's really hard to rearrange chains like that, because you have to repatch everything and blah, blah, blah. And I feel that with this series of all your plugins, it's so cool because they play well with other plugins too. Like with the UAD stuff, that's really cool right now. Like I can put a Culture Vulture going into Black Hole, then Black Hole going into Crystals, then Crystals going into like Soft Tooth Biscuit, and suddenly you get these crazy bit reduction reverb kind of thingies. That's really cool.
So that's a great point. You're talking about other processes that play well with this effect.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Like, what are, when you're getting into this territory, what else are you reaching for to add those touches?
It kind of just gave me an idea that I don't know if you necessarily like it, because it might cannibalize the H9000s. But
oh, wow.
but It would be amazing to have almost like a reactor style platform where you could modularly route your own series of Eventide effects.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah,
I was
as a plugin?
telling about yesterday.
as a plugin.
Like a rock with
Yeah.
As a plugin. Yeah.
You were telling me this over the phone, Robert, the other day.
And you know what? Add another thing, I like randomized bottom to all of the parameters of all of them together.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And
now
just
you're
count the
talking.
element
Okay.
surprise. It would be just nuts.
You
Okay.
could add an LFO to, or multiple, like all your modulators, whatever you want, and then have them be able to be mapped to individual parameters. I mean, again,
Like
that's
a
kind of what you can
VSig
do with the
light
9000.
plugin.
But yeah,
Like something slightly easier to use than VSig, right?
I was gonna say, are you taking notes, Russ?
H9 rack. That's it.
something like, or like the Sound Toys thing or whatever, But
Right.
Yeah, like a rack.
I want it nerdier.
Yeah.
You want
I
it to
agree.
turn and you can patch at the back also?
I want it to be reactor, but with Eventide.
I mean, my
Finally, we all think about the same thing. Yeah.
my
I
hope
think
would be
there's
to
like
have
natural
something that's like.
evolution, what's going to
Sorry.
happen next, probably.
What I love about all the H9 plugins that you released, first of all, they all sound good. Every time you turn it on and you use it, it has a very nice sound. It's never like, oh, how's going to be this one? No, they come from a good, I would say a good background, but good family, so they sound good. And even the one, for me, I really love the crushed station that you released, a month ago or something like that.
Yeah.
I really love this one, But the one you released, Crystal, Crystal's, what I like is, for me, I like always to have a contrast, to have something that is weird and bizarre and wide and phasey, and then something very clean and dry. And in the past, I used to do a lot of things with, 20 years ago, it was very, I would say, wet. A lot of effects. And then I came back to very dry sounds, almost nothing, so it was like very clear. I wanted everybody to understand that this is my bass line, this is my lead. But then there was no space. And then what I'm doing more now is create contrast. The background is wide with often one of your plugins because they have these great movement in them. And that's what's cool about them. There's like this space that you have. And then you have a very clean one at the front that's leading the way, basically. And that's something I really go back to often because they create that movement that instead of just having a stale, same bass line, because sometimes we work with loops and then they become boring, your stuff just give it life. That's what's cool about it.
So, Nutrix, can you take me a little bit through more how these fit into your process? I know that you've been working to make your iPad kind of like the command center for all of your hardware.
Yeah, there was, at a moment ago, about 4 years ago, I had nothing. And I went all back just on the iPad, and I made an album just on the iPad. And then
The mobile sessions, right?
Yeah, the mobile session, I call it. And then gradually I just bought back stuff because, we love to buy stuff. So,
We don't like noise.
but I sold some of it, so I don't have everything. But today I'm kind of, it fits into a wider, I would say, wider way to approach it. The iPad I use a lot to create. I use mostly Korg, but Korg Gadget doesn't have AU plugins.
Insert effects, right?
That's it. So now I'm moving towards more Zen Beats from Roland, which it was basically before that it was Stage Light from Open Labs, and this runs audio unit. So that's where I'm playing with that. And what's cool about it, I do it on the iPad. Then I usually, after some of the sound, I'll keep right away because they sound exactly the way I want. But now these DAWs on the iPad, they're able to do everything you have on the computer. They're really powerful. I also use Audio Pro, which is in a way a Pro Tools on an iPad. I mix albums on it, and it sounds amazing. There's Fat Filter plugin in it. It's just and before Universal AU plugins were there, so it's been a good journey, especially because I think in the last year, Apple officially announced that the next wave, or the next way that they will be supporting the iPad for audio, is only through AU plugins. So it means that they will support it, and everybody has been jumping on it, and now you've got stable system using that, so which is a great thing. And now I'm kind of hoping to see what's going to be happening in the next year, because now this week Apple was announcing that the new laptops will be running ARM CPUs.
ARM, right?
So the same as the iPad. Yeah, that's it, and the iPhone. So what's going to be the next generation? You know, what's going to be, how different will be an iPad or an iPhone from a laptop? You know, so I'm curious. I'm just wondering where we're going to go with that. But right now, I can I play with both of them. You know, I try to say when I did my iPad only album, it was kind of a proof of concept. I wanted to prove it could be done. You know, even mastering on it, that was a little bit more difficult. But it worked, you know. But I mean, now I you know, I go back to Ableton Live. I go back to the iPad. I hook up everything here, and I record it back into the computer, and then I send it back to the iPad, and I finish the mix over there. And then when I go back to there, I always, sometimes a lot of people ask me, you know, how you decide when, you know, when you do what. And I think that's most people, when they're trying to learn how to make music, what they don't get or what they haven't structured for themselves is the workflow. You know, what's their workflow? And it's hard for me to tell them what's the best for them, because I know the best for myself. And worse than that, I know the best for this project. Next project, I'm going to have a different workflow. So right now, this is how I work. I use the iPad to create, then I use everything else to play back together, record it into the computer, then send it back onto the iPad. But next project, I don't know. Might be different. You know?
That actually brings up another good point, which is that I think, because I get asked as well, like, you know, with all these plugins and all that, like how, with all these choices, especially since I love hardware stuff and all that too, how do you even, like, you know, start creating, and like, how do you choose things? And what, and I think that, you know, a lot of the Eventide choice, to be honest, is your pedigree. I mean, you guys are legendary, and I'm not just saying that because, you know, to like blow smoke. Like, your effects have a certain sound which have been used on every record that I've ever loved, from Peter Gabriel to Prince to whoever. And when I use one of your plugins, I don't feel like I'm just using, oh, that does a phaser type vibe, or that does a flanger type vibe. I mean, there's a million harmonizers, there's a million granular reverbs that you can make, use, buy. There's freeware for everything. You know, it's like, I really feel like people that are watching this who are getting into music and don't know the history of Eventide, I think that's such an important part, honestly, of how I feel when I'm using crystals, because I'm like, it makes me feel like I'm using an H3000. And even though somebody might say, yeah, man, but you're old, you know, get over that. You know, like, who cares? Just use whatever is the best. No, because I feel like you guys are using proprietary things that you guys created, you know? And it's different. It's kind of like when UAD, you know, and they're doing, you know, they model a Neve 1084. No, it's not just an EQ. You know, it's a non-linear preamp that does a bunch of weird shit because it has weird transformers. Like, I feel like that's how I see your H9 series and now your plugins. It's like, I feel like, oh my, you know, I'm getting what I used to always covet from those H3000s and harmonizers that I used to use in big studios.
We went as far as to write an artificial intelligence algorithm to make sure that when we were porting old code to new code, that it sounded the same.
Yeah, and you can tell.
There's,
you know,
robots listening.
Yeah.
No, because I feel like a lot of people can just be like, yeah, crystals is just another delay reverb, you know, like, it's not though, you know, because it's important to convey that when we're doing these things, because I do truly feel like you guys nailed it of bringing kind of the magic from the boxes and evolved it a little bit, you know.
And
I
you know
always
what
found
another
these-
is like they're all blending very nice together when you mix them together too.
Yeah.
Because you know, there's like so many other plugins, no matter it's like Waves producing, Santos, Universal Audio, Steinberg have their own native instruments, and trying blending them together, that's like sometimes art, and not necessarily they're all gonna working sometimes together, but when you stick just like with the stuff what's kind of like the H9 right now, it's just blend nice together, and they have the special, the unique character, you know what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
after people will be trying like recreating this thing and analyze, like I find out a lot of people like analyze how I'm produce my sounds, whatever I'm doing, and people just sometimes overthinking. They're going so many different directions, and sometimes stick with like basic things, what's blending nice together. It's just more easy, you know?
Yeah.
You know, find the blends of everything and how they're matching together nice. Sonically, the sounds nice after. It's just how you say. The Eventide sound like the very characteristic sound. There's nothing like Eventide after, you know. There'll
I
be
just-
something like lexicon or something Eventide.
It's musical.
Yes.
That's how I would like. I think when I buy gear, I kind of buy gear that does something musical to me.
Yeah.
You
It's
know.
gonna have nice tonal and pleasant to ears to listen.
Yeah.
And you know it's gonna work. You basically know right away this gonna work. Other one not.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because before, you remember when you go to like music store, there was like 20 different reverbs hardwares to buy, 20 different EQs, something. But what's the difference? EQ is EQ, same name, but they have some different character of the EQ. And I think so it's Eventide capture. It's the sound. They all have like the similar tone, the pleasant tone, and they just work together, you know? It's like
Yeah,
they're
I look
like
at them as instruments more than anything.
Yeah.
You know, because like you listen to like say the early Steve Vai records where he's playing through an H3000. That was my introduction to Eventide, and it changed the way he played entirely. The same way you stick an Eventide Rose in front of a synth or something, it's going to affect how you play. It's all inspiration. It surpasses the idea of what an effect is. It becomes an actual instrument that changes how you create and inspires you, and that's a strength that is so ubiquitous to almost everything Eventide makes, and that's why I use it on like everything.
Matt, is that a Juno 106 back there?
Yeah, that's a 106. Yeah.
Right. So, you know how weird that chorus is,
Yeah,
especially the second one,
yeah, it's so good and so bad.
and so noisy, but it's just awesome.
So good.
There's something about it, right? Like I feel like that's kind of what you guys are bringing to the DAW world. It's like it's not just a clean, or it's not just like a delay reverb in a nice clean plugin. Like it has that character.
exactly.
Right. You know, and there's space for that kind of thing, but like other people have that covered. Like if you just want that, like you can get that easily.
Yeah.
But like Matt's saying, if you want something that's gonna inspire something creatively, you got, you know, like when it comes to that, I reach for something from Eventide. I was like, oh, you know, I gotta put some sauce on this. I'm gonna go here. That's just now part of how I do it.
True.
I think we're at a point now too where that has to happen because the amount of tools out there are a million delays, there are a million EQs. So if it's not doing something unique, why even think about buying it at this point? Because we all have, I mean, if I look at my plugin folder,
Filled with all of the same.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed of my plugin folder at this point. It's just,
Oh no.
well, it's because there's stuff that I've had, you know, an update or whatever I've had for a zillion years, and I don't use it anymore, you know, and so it just, you know, if it's a rack or something, I don't know. It feels more wasteful if it's just a plugin folder full of software that's just deep in my computer. I don't know, but I go to the things that inspire me to come back to them each time, you know, and that's what I'm looking for in a good plugin.
Speaking to that like instrumental character that you guys are talking about, which is awesome. When you hear an effect like crystals, for instance, does that then force you kind of to think backwards and say, okay, I'm going to record a new sound specifically to meet this, you know, to create this kind of sound and start from that point?
It changes how you play completely.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, especially, I mean, crystals can be a really, really extreme effect. So you can't, I mean, I personally find it's stylistic, but I can't play a lot of notes with it. It's just gonna become a blur. But, and even like, and I like doing some pretty extreme pitch shifting where I'm pitch shifting and, you know, diatonic harmonies basically. So consequently, even if I play a clustery chord, it just turns into a soup, which can be cool. But a lot of times, I mean, you play like a minor 7 flat 5 and you run it through, you know, again, like a Genesis Worlds, like a 5th up and a 4th down kind of thing. It's just noise at that point. So, but you could play a C, you could play a D, and then you get this really nice extended voicing, or maybe even, you know, a C and a G together. I know that's really pushing the envelope. And that is, so it changes entirely how you play, because there's a limitation as far as, you know, what's going to sound good. And it's the same thing with anything. I mean, it's like putting how a guitar pedal changes how you play. It changes your musicality. I mean,
exactly.
Nothing like that.
And I feel like going back to Brian Eno, you know, who's like probably my all-time hero, which is when they were doing those U2 records, that's why The Edge was always my favorite rock guitarist, because he played 2 notes sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
And it would just be this soundtrack. You'd be like, oh my, you know, and that's where, like, you know, effects are not cheesy, because those records are crazy good. I mean, you know, and what I love about Crystals is I feel because you guys integrated the reverb aspect to it, I feel like you can get a little bit of that Eno thing, like the stuff he did with Harold Budd, with the Pearl and stuff. I mean, he's playing 1 note on the piano.
That's one of my favorite albums ever.
Greatest. And I mean, and you got to hear that album, the Pearl by Harold Budd, whoever hasn't heard it. I mean, minimal piano, and then it's just this movement from all these tails, you know? And I have no idea how he did it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some Eventide in there.
So guys, I share with you, most of my trailer tracks, when I have like license for the movie trailers, come bass, play, and then 1 note, either D or E or A, because this is where the bass sounds the best. And just how I say, like playing Crystal, like when when Van was recording, he must play this thing live, because if he would be just playing what he want to play and try in the studio post-production running to this thing, there will be completely different challenge, and it doesn't sound like him anymore, because the pulsing and the all rhythmic stuff was going with pitch. It's just changing the way how we play. So sometimes I just play like a 1 simple note and just let the note, just the tone evolve going, then adding another note, another. And sometimes just play like every 1 bar, 1 note, and things just happen, you know what I mean? It's like I'm not the keyboard player, but sometimes when I finish playing this thing, just play like 1 note, people are like thinking, how do I did this thing, you know? And this is all just evolving 1 simple sound, 1 note. And I think so this was beauty about this thing, you know?
Yeah.
You really don't have to be today musicians having to, you know, it helps if you have any knowledge about the music, you know, something basically rhythmic, but you don't have to be like Berkeley graduate to accomplish something really, really extremely cool and unique, what actually is gonna grab more people attention than the person who graduate like high-end school playing so many different notes, because it's like you sound just like anyone else. And this, it's simple, but it's amazing. Like look at that, like signature thing will be like the Avengers. If any one of you guys see the Avengers trailer, you just hear like a 1 note of the piano hitting. And there's like a 1 note going to like black hole with some reverse going under, and you get, you know, the movie, you know, the intents, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back and listen to that trailer now.
Yeah, just listen to just the 1 note, and just go, and just put like a reverse going, and just going, and this is how it works, you know?
Yeah.
So I love this thing, you know, your plugins, what you guys did, is completely changed the way musicians play, you know what I mean? Because like a guitar player coming to the studio, it's a different thing in post-production. If you're gonna add reverb, chorus, compressions, and EQ, that's different thing. But as an inspiration thing, when the guitar player is gonna come and starting playing, the tone is just completely change everything. I see like Patrick sometimes posting, you know, from Eventide posting video, how he play guitar. And he just play like some simple chords once a while, and then just the sounds evolve and creating this amazing music, you know, like, this is what I like about this stuff. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
One big difference is that when you use uh, like crystals, you're basically, in my case, I'm using it in the creation aspect, because it's part of the design of the sound and the choice, because you play to the result of that output of the crystals. You're not just playing a note and then later on splat something on it. You're playing the effect. So I found myself often going back to the sound after putting the effect on and said, well, it doesn't give me the result I want. And I changed the sample I was using or the sound I was using that was feeding through it. So I was basically, shaping the result of the effect. And that was part of my creative process. So because these are not, like we said earlier, these are not traditional effects like reverb and delay and EQ. These are not just mixing effects. These are creation effects. These are musical effects. So they're part of the process. So I use it mostly when I put my hat of an artist or a producer. But when I get into mixing, then these are already usually decided on, and they have the sound I want before I go into mixing, because it should be. They're part of the decision of the musicality of the song.
And
And you,
now that we live in a world, where sampling is so big,
Yeah.
um, I used to take Harold Budd's the Pro record or whatever, and I used to grab a piece of the tail from one note on the piano and sample that and use that as a sort of pad sound. So with crystals, what's amazing is that you can create such a long tail of such a cool sound that evolves, that you could actually go in and slice the tail from crystals.
Yeah.
And you get these really cool, otherworldly kind of, it almost sounds like some vinyl.
I love that trick where you can like slicing a reverb tail and playing it like an instrument.
Killer.
So
Especially
killer.
if you tune it and stuff. It
Yeah.
just these amazing things.
Yeah, that stuff is great, and especially in the world with like Splice, where a lot of people are now using one sample source or one large pool of sample sources. And I use Splice, and it's great, and it's very convenient. But in the back of my mind, it's like, oh, well, am I going to have this same thing in here that somebody else has in their track, which is, for me, like the worst possible transgression. I don't want you to have my same sounds. So yeah, I am picking sounds with effects in mind, like, oh, I can take this, I'll put it through Crustation, then it's going to be X, Y, and Z, and then I can use that to be the basis of the beat, because I just don't want that same thing that inevitably someone else is going to have.
Yeah.
so in a way, the effect to you is just the confidence of knowing that you're going to be able to get whatever sound you're hearing at that moment to where you want it to be.
Well, I'm gonna pick my sample based on that idea. If I'll pick something that's like, oh, this will lend itself well to being thrown through crystals or something like that. Just so, for me, it's more freeing creatively, because then I'm not thinking all along, well, I can't just take this and loop it, because that's going to be done by somebody else. I'm already starting from a standpoint of, well, nobody has it just like this, because this plugin is so flexible. I'll turn this knob this much. Okay, now I'm on to something different, because everything is reacting off of that. There's not going to be a way where someone's going to have my same sound in that same way.
Sure. Yeah.
Totally. Do you ever take that approach then with like something that you had already created yourself and say, like, okay, here's something that's basic, and instead of using that as the basis, you kind of like go further in and create that vibe that it was a sample that you pulled from somewhere else, right? And now you're manipulating it in that way.
Yeah, I'll do that if I've got, for every beat that's great that I've produced, there's a folder of a bunch of trash beats that I don't ever want anyone to hear, So maybe, yeah, I'll go back into that stuff, and whatever is not super cringeworthy, I'll take out and form into something else. At one point I thought it was a good idea. Maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong, but I can at least flip it into something else and, create something new out of it. That's like, I don't dig through vinyl that much anymore, because clearances and stuff like that, it's just it's a hassle. But anything else is fair game to sample. An old beat of mine for me is certainly fair game. And if I can turn it on its head with something cool, even better.
Oh, that's cool. So you're actually going through your own old catalog of things that are just sitting on your hard drive and saying, "Hey, what can I update and bring into this new, drop into this, new mix or beat or."
Yeah, because the one thing I might not go back and listen to a whole lot of old beats that I don't like, but I don't delete anything. So I've
Yeah.
got all the garbage beats from like 2003, 2004, stuff that would never be on somebody's record in that form. But ideally, hopefully, there was a good idea somewhere in it, so maybe I can draw that out and turn it into something else.
Because originally you did create it because it was inspiring for you, and
Right.
sometimes you just put it aside because it doesn't click in the end. But about every year I clean up my drive at one point and I find files that I did that, and then I find like there's one part that is super cool, but the rest is crap. But that
Right.
part is like, yeah, I can find some way to reuse it today. There's different ways I can. But I often just reopen file. Well, when I can reopen files, because sometimes it's in a format that doesn't exist anymore. But if it works, you were drawn to make that. So there
Right.
was something that triggered the interest.
That's
And then
right.
when you look at it, and sometimes okay, maybe I can twist it. I can
Yeah.
maybe, if it triggers again, some interest.
Yeah, like I made it on purpose at some
Yeah.
point. And what'll happen a lot is I'll be making something, then I'll go down the lane. It's like, oh, I'm not feeling this anymore. Okay, bounce it, save it, and move on to something else. But there's still, ideally, something of value buried in there.
Yeah.
And if not, just crank crystals to 100% wet and it'll be dope.
Exactly.
Put
Exactly.
the whole mix in.
Yeah.
And you're
Just run it straight through, crank that
Just
bad boy to 100.
master it like that.
Right?
Throw
So-
it on TuneCore,
Just
man.
like that. Just
So that's the
like
next album. It's
That's
called
it.
Hard Drive Finds. That's
Oh, man.
1 hour of Eventide.
What
Wet.
hour of crystals?
I
Just
That's it.
don't
hitting.
see that ever sounding bad, I gotta say. Like, you can pass anything.
Oh, man. I'm going to try it.
I want everybody watching to release that album now, and we can compare.
Pick your worst leftovers. Let's see how we do.
Well, listen, guys, I want to thank you again for joining us on this chat. This has been awesome. I've been paying attention to what you guys have been doing, and I'm honored to have you on this chat. So thanks again. I think this is about our time. So let's wrap it up and just do some outro. So we're going to go around and just tell the stream, what you've been up to, where they can find you on social, all that good stuff. And let's start with Matt.
So my main project during this whole quarantine, pandemic, protest, I'm in LA. We had curfews for 5 days in a row where we couldn't leave the house past 6 p.m.
That's
So that
crazy.
was weird. But I've been mostly doing a project called Isolated. It's very on the nose title. But I wrote and released 15 tracks over the course of 2 months. And it's all out on Spotify. And I'm doing more, but that was the main project. And you can find me everywhere. I am omniscient on the internet. So Google Matt Lang and you'll find everything I do. So thanks.
New tricks.
Well, I am active today on YouTube, so you can find on my YouTube channel. I released at least one video per week, mostly about new stuff, new plugins and stuff like that. But I'm gradually moving more into showing up how I work and how I approach making music, so I help people out. And you can find me on Spotify, on iTunes. The mobile session made entirely on the iPad is available there. And I'm cooking something new that will be released when I'm ready. There's no rush.
Sebastian.
I've been mixing a lot during quarantine because it's so easy to get files, like remotely. And I feel like I had been working on so many projects before this. And then luckily they had just been finished. So I've been mixing almost every day. Got a couple of electronic projects going on in Berlin. Working on some Avenger stuff coming up. I'm working with a band from Stone's Throw called The Steeples, which are fantastic. And also doing some solo work. And on the internet, I'm got my own website, rockasound.com, and then I'm under Instagram mostly. Instagram.com/rockasound. Yeah.
Robert.
So I just finished work, how I said before, on the new Steinberg project. I'm working on the new upcoming release for the Steinberg. I gonna have big release coming July 16, but I'm under NDA, and the guys will be just chase me if I will say what is this. But I know a lot of composers was waiting for this, I would say just a decade. So finally will be out.
Oh, cool.
Then I did stuff right now, just finished for the for the Roland, all sample packs for the SPDX sampler, and actually it's gonna go to the new engines for them. Then what else? There's some other new libraries, I forget.
So much to keep in mind.
Yeah, but it's basically, and I'm starting and I'm doing a lot of videos on Instagram, basically showing people how I do my things, basically showing step-by-step recording, how I process my stuff. And so you can find me on Instagram, robertduzi.com, on my YouTube channel, where it's more in-depth videos, basically showing the gears and how I'm using this stuff. So that's it.
And Willie Green.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of mixing through the pandemic. I had a project come out, I guess, I don't know, time is just a flat circle. Couple months ago, I don't know. Singer named Fielded. I mixed and mastered a EP for her called Sacrifice Zone. She's super dope. She's phenomenal. And also last week, the big thing, Arm & Hammer, rap group here from Brooklyn, Billy Woods and Elucid. Their new LP just dropped last Friday. That's called Shrines. And that's kind of that's where I get the most busy with all the sauce from the Eventide plugins and everything. We stretched out a lot on that, and they're just phenomenal MCs. So Shrines is out now. Label told me today the vinyl is already sold out, so that's dope. But you can get it digital. And I'm online, Twitter, Instagram, Willie Green, and the number 1. That's Willie Green 1. So hit me up and I don't know, say hello.
Guys, again, this has truly been an honor. Thanks again to everybody who tuned in. That's our time for today, and this is the Crystals crew signing off. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Guys,
Thanks.